Good.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, got my mic on.
Yep. Government shutdown and its immigration implication tonight. And we're going to talk about 5-year EADs and a few other current events. I'm Sam Shihab from the law firm of Shihab Burke, and with me,
Brian Burke from that very same place on a happy Monday.
and we are going to be talking about a current event that is on everybody's mind. We're not going to talk about the government shutdown except maybe the introduction, but understanding it a little bit and then understanding how does it impact our day-to-day life as immigrants going through the immigration process and see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't happen,
Yeah.
Brian, but it's kind of looking bad because we just got some updates that some presidential candidates are
Saying, shut down the government.
go for it,
Yeah,
do it.
yeah. And get everything you want. Shut down the government until you get everything that you want.
Yeah.
Which
So,
is
yeah.
what we'll talk about is ridiculous because there's a bunch of holdouts there, but you have to have a vote of the House and both houses of Congress in order to actually pass a budget. So.
You know, the sad thing is people that work for the federal government, some people do not have a lot of money and do not have a lot of resources. And when the government shuts down, they don't get paid.
Yeah.
And when they don't get paid, by the way, there's restrictions, by the way, on them. They cannot take jobs that involves talking about their government jobs, so that they're also restricted during that time because they're furloughed. And they have mortgage payments, they have education for their children, they have to buy food.
Everything that you and I have, but
Without the money.
Yeah, without the money, yeah.
Yeah, and then there is the other people who are must show up to work, but will not get paid.
Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about those
two.
folks and how they both sort of, get involved in this picture and the immigration impacts.
And obviously pointing at how does it impact us as immigrants is very important. But before we go there, why are they shutting down the government in very simple terms, Brian?
Okay. One term, money. More broadly, back in June of 2023, this year, a law was passed that everybody sort of had a consensus that this would reflect what our spending is for the coming fiscal year. It's beginning on October 1st. And now it's time to spend, time to actually pass those spending bills. And in the House of Representatives, there's two houses in the U.S. Congress. There's the House of Representatives, the Senate. Both of them have to pass a spending bill. The House of Representatives is saying, hey, we actually want to spend less than what everybody agreed on back in June. And that group, that little, like the further right-wing part of the Republican Party, wants to spend less, and they want to add a couple other things to the spending bill, which means the House can't, the Republicans don't have the votes in the House to pass a spending bill.
Explained in a different way, at least my version of it, the simple version, is that Congress must pass the budget, must authorize.
That's in the Constitution.
Yeah, must sign the check. Then the government takes a check and spend it. The Congress is refusing to sign the check. They're refusing to authorize the payment. So that's why it's shutting down, because they're saying, by golly, we're not signing this check. I need a smaller check to sign. I'm not spending that much money on the government. But the government is saying, I really need a little bit more than what you're saying no to. So there is a gap between what the government wants, which is the President of the United States that runs the government, and what Congress that signs the check, holds the bank. There's a gap between what those guys wants to pay and what those guys think they need. And it is about politics, after all, because it's Republican Democrats at the bottom line, because the Democrats are sitting in and watching and saying, oh, we love this show because it's Republican against Republican fighting, but the Democrats are loving it and enjoying it. In Congress, they're saying, okay, you guys fight it out. You decide. We're not. You're the one that's holding out.
So great point. I mean, it's in the Constitution. The Congress is responsible for power of the purse, where the money gets spent. But the people who actually spend the money, that's the executive branch, and that's the president and all the agencies underneath him. And I would note that this all kind of dates back to the the sort of crisis that was had in the House of Representatives when they were electing their Speaker of the House. Essentially, that rift in the Republican Party seems to be what is manifesting here. They took, I think it was like 18 votes in order to elect a Speaker of the House, and the reason why you're seeing Kevin McCarthy in all the images in all the news media is because, well, he's the guy at the center of this, because he's responsible for getting the people, Republicans in the House of Representatives, to do what
needs to be done.
Yeah. And his job hangs in the balance, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also the other thing that we need to mention before we jump in on really what does it impact in terms of our life is that the government for years spends more than they raise. They have a dysfunctional house. The U.S. government, right now, the best explanation I've received when I was looking at the best answer is the government is getting credit cards to pay for credit card bills. Basically, there is no attempt by this government to lower the debt.
You know, Sam, it depends upon the news media you're reading. That sounds like a terrifying scenario. But you know, if you've got it, you know, if you know the money's coming in, you can just keep on spending. This is just a rich kid with an infinite credit card. It's the United States government. Who's going to come after him? You know, it's us. And
that's the other argument that people have the attitude that Brian has just presented, who think that, you know, we got the mightiest military in the world.
Yeah.
We can just force it.
Oh,
what the heck?
You know, when the average person, you know, a debt collector calls them and says, "I'm going to get my guns and come down there," they get arrested. when the U.S. government gets that, well, you got to
come and get me.
Yeah,
I need more money, and if you don't like it, come and get me.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
All right. So impact on us. And it's multifaceted, so we're going to break it down, right?
Yeah, so at the highest level, like you said, first things first, government workers who are working will not get paid. Those who are not considered essential, they're going to be furloughed. They're going to be at home sitting on their hands, you know, and not able to work for anybody else practically either. But there are agencies that are self-funded, and Preview, USCIS is one of them. They take your money for filing fees, and, you know, they spend that on their services they provide people, mostly. But you break it down on the agency by agency basis, and you know, the headline is USCIS still going to operate, but there's a whole lot of asterisks and buts on that would really kind of impact the people that are in, you know, our community of sort of watchers here. You know.
Yeah.
So
USCIS can operate, and I think the best description I heard is like maybe at 70 or 80% capacity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things within their operation. You know, for example, if you're doing an adjustment of status that requires a G325A, the G325A is cross-agency. They've moved on to they blended that.
It's in the form now.
It's in the form now.
Yeah, but background check service.
Background check.
Yeah. So you bring up a great point. So the headlines will tell you which agencies are running, but you know, deep down in it is going to say, but they're dependent on support services from X, Y, and Z to run. If they don't have the support services, they can slow down or grind to a halt. Yeah.
For example, an I-140 filing, a lot of time requires a confirmation of that copy of the labor certification from
that's a great
the
point.
Department of Labor.
Yeah.
So ring, 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 Department of Labor. Oh, we're shut down. Call us in 2 weeks when we open.
They're not going to put up a photo. They're just going to keep on ringing. But yes, good point. So USCIS, they remain open. In the notes, though, there are a couple programs that are funded through appropriations through the spending power of Congress. EV5 Regional Center Program is going to be shut down in the event of government shutdown. E-Verify, J1, apparently there's a J1 waiver program for doctors, and the non-minister religious workers program are apparently built on appropriations. The USCIS Ombudsman gets shut down. You know, the agency that keeps an eye on USCIS's operations.
And that one is like almost like kids when parents are not in the house.
Yeah.
The ombudsman is the oversight of these kids, and when the kids are not in the house, what do you think happens? You guys are parents. What do you think happens in the house when parents are not in the house?
Well, to continue that, the metaphor of the USCIS ombudsman, it's like, you know, having like 20 or so parents for 40,000 kids, and however many is in USCIS. So I mean, that's a problem. Yeah. But yeah. But really, it's kind of the trick, what feeds into USCIS? What things do we send to USCIS? What does USCIS need from other agencies? And we're talking about a little bit about their internal operations. But how about the Department of Labor, Sam? Totally independent agency, but they have their fingers on everything we do, as well as on the people that are in our audience in terms of immigration stuff.
Department of Labor is complete shutdown.
Complete shutdown.
Not only that, they're taking their servers down. Good luck bringing these servers up.
Yeah. The government Department of Labor uses a web portal they call FLAG. It's the Foreign Labor. I can't remember the rest of the acronym, but the FLAG portal, and they have confirmed already that portal will be shut down if the government shuts down on October 1st.
As they did last time. And when they brought it up last time, I just had a flashback. It did all kind of weird things and send out all kind of crazy emails not supposed to send out. I mean, it doesn't just go back to normal on day one when you bring back the server.
What do we lose from the Department of Labor? One, ETA 9035 labor condition applications, LCAs. Every person in our audience who is on an H-1B visa has an LCA. If you need to file a new LCA for an amendment, extension, a change of employer, you cannot file them when the Department of Labor is shut down. It remains to be seen. In the past government shutdowns, USCIS has issued, workaround policies, so business can still go onwards. But that's going to be a challenge.
So the one that they've issued last time probably might see it again is if there is an change of status. Being, if you're going to run out of status, file the H-1B without the LCA. They allow you to do that. But I mean, what about amendments and compliance?
For me, I mean, I don't file H-1Bs for fun, Sam. I file them when there's a legitimate need to maintain compliance. Change of employer. Well, the employer change is going to happen. What, employer changes don't need to happen? What if I've lost my job at company A? Well, that company B filing has to happen within 60 days, or I fall outside the H-1B grace period. And I'm not going to trust, as an attorney, I'm not going to trust the government to be nice after the fact. I'm going to send out whatever case I can get out the door, and
fight the fight when when you have to.
So H-1Bs, problems there. Other side is Department of Labor perm stuff. ETA 9089, the perm forms, as well as ETA 9141, prevailing wages that underlie those perms. So the inevitable question, Sam, comes: should I rush to get in my prevailing wage or my ETA 9089 or my LCA before this government shutdown happens? Now, I did read a statement. I don't know if you saw this one. ALA says that they heard that maybe if you file an LCA this week, they'll get it in before the government shutdown. No guarantees on that one. It says it's feasible. It's potentially feasible that if you're filing LCAs today, perhaps you might get them before the end of the week.
So by law, explain. It's 7 days. They have up to 7 days to certify. When I started practicing law many years ago, we used to get an LCA certified in practically 15 seconds. Today, it is 7 days to get it.
Pretty much on the nose. I remember when I started, it used to be like, it might come in 3, 4, 5 days later in the week. But now it's literally every morning around 12. Attorney Joe said, 12:07 a.m. The very first thing in the morning, they start out sending LCA approvals that were, filed for LCA for a week prior. So we haven't seen an early LCA in years, but it's possible they're going to get those ones out if you're filing them this week. However, they've also said we're required on October 1st to shut down that flag portal. And I don't think the flag portal was in existence during the last government shutdown.
Prior one. The predecessor portal.
And but the bottom line is we won't have access. So I guess if anybody out there doesn't know already, if you're working on an H-1B, be ready to get your LCA and get it downloaded from there as soon as it's.
Download it before Saturday or Sunday, right?
So Sunday? They say October 1st. Saturday is the 30th. So sometime on Saturday.
Saturday is the last day you can download an LCA. Or a copy of the labor certificate, whatever. I'm sure your attorney knows if you're working with an attorney, but you might want to check with them.
I mean, fundamentally though, the Department of Labor is going to be shut down. So if you're counting on your prevailing wage to come on a certain time frame, for example, which they're taking about 10 months now, I would presume it's going to be that time plus however long the government shutdown is, because they're not working on your cases or your labor certification. Labor certification has filing deadlines which you might want to meet.
I think longer.
Yeah.
Just respectfully,
Oh, no,
I disagree.
no, I don't disagree.
Because it's the backlog.
Yeah.
It's the backlog. And sometime what happens when they, and that's why it may not be a good idea to rush anything, because sometime what happens is they get back to work, and then the work comes in, tsunami of work, everybody's waiting, right?
Yeah.
And then the stuff that was not done before get left in the back, and then they just handle new stuff, and then they leave the old stuff.
Yeah. As something I should mention, as a practical matter, perms have regimented filing windows based upon when recruitments and prevailing wages are available. Some folks might be forced to have their labor certification filed on paper, which is a miserable process. You send it to them.
As opposed to electronic.
Yeah, as opposed to electronically. Perms get submitted through an online portal. You're entirely right. And basically, those cases will move even slower, and you can expect that they will, that a higher rate of audit on those things due to the inherent errors that come with the fact that they have to receive a paper form and scan it, and it looks different than the ones they usually do, and there'll be transcription errors and all other sorts of fun.
Immigration Custom Enforcement, Brian.
Well, I mentioned earlier there are essential
ICE.
There are essential agencies that will keep on operating. They are amongst them.
They will operate without a pay, so they are going to be cranky.
Yeah.
Okay, these are law enforcement officers.
Impossible, Sam. ICE being cranky.
Yeah, I mean, these are law enforcement officers out there enforcing the law without pay. Don't get any of those guys mad during the shutdown.
Well, who are people in our audience more likely to encounter who will also be without pay and are also considered essential, Sam? Customs and Border Protection.
CBP.
Yeah.
So CBP are the people at the border, at the airports. Also, they're inspecting you, and they are not paid during that time. And the other group, which I don't see here, which is TSA.
Oh, I talked about TSA a bit. Yeah.
So we're running a little bit out of time here to take
yeah.
questions, but we're having fun talking here. So Customs and Border Protection, Brian, are going to continue to work without pay during the shutdown. They're cranky. Don't mess with them. TSA, expect longer line at TSA.
Well, why are you going to expect longer lines? Well, one, because they're cranky. Two, what forced the end of the last government shutdown was people from TSA as well as air traffic controllers saying, nuts to this, I'm not working, and calling off, and basically it caused massive travel delays, which basically forced the
crisis,
yeah.
created a crisis. Now the air traffic controllers are the ones sitting in the tower that talk to the plane that says, clear to land. This plane go to that direction. Basically, they're air traffic controllers. They're police officers that control the air, the flow of planes. A lot of them called sick because these are essential employees. They're supposed to come in. This is a very stressful job, by the way.
Yeah, one of the highest.
Yeah. One of the highest stress job ever, and they're dragging them out. And now they're not paying them, and they're saying the heck with it. So TSAs, air traffic controllers show up, don't work, and last time they called in sick and created a crisis and forced the government to resolve itself.
One agency we got to tackle before we move on, Sam, is Department of State. Department of State, the consulates. Now, Department of State is one of those.
Huge.
Yeah, so you pay fees when you apply for a visa. You pay fees when you apply for a passport. However, this is one of those agencies which everything I've read says these guys are really subject to the old, we're funded by your fees, but not all of our support staff, not all of our support services. So expect slowdowns and substantial delays there.
The focus is going to be on serving U.S. citizens' need abroad at the consulate, because this is the #1 function of the U.S. consulate abroad, is to serving U.S. citizens' need. That's going to be the #1 priority. Everything else is going to be a secondary priority. Expect more delays at stamping.
Yeah. So, the good news, Sam. There's some good news.
Is this all on government shutdown?
No, that's just bad news until we hear they've made a positive
So moving on
forward.
from government shutdown to something unrelated.
So one thing we've heard is this is an announcement from the Department of Homeland Security that they are going to give a luxuriously long EAD for certain categories, adjustment EADs amongst them, 5 years. Pretty nice.
That's fantastic. Does not cover advanced parole. nor should you expect it. For some reason, advanced parole, they treat it differently because it's really a permission to be readmitted to the U.S., and it's taken very seriously, which is fine. I'm not going to complain. The ability to have a work permit for 5 years, so in a 10-year span, you only renew one time, really fantastic.
Sam, that's terrible, though. You just painted the nightmare scenario where somebody has a pending adjustment of status for 10 years.
A lot of them do.
I know. And
that's the reality.
Yeah, and it stinks.
Yes, but just being able to take that pressure, that pressure that somebody with a stick over your head, that's basically a cloud over your head, 24/7, saying you got to renew every year. You got to renew every year. It's ridiculous. 5 years, wonderful.
Well, I'll be interested to hear from the audience what the anxiety level is regarding EAD renewals, because I don't see problems with those.
How about if they renew your driver's license every year as opposed to every 3 or 4 years?
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point.
It's annoying as hell.
People are miserable over the driver's license aspect of it. Yeah, if you have an EAD in hand,
it's fantastic.
And 50 different states with 50 different BMVs full of 50 unhappy employees, and none of them are happy with anybody's immigration records.
Yeah.
Well, I have one other bonus item on the list, Sam.
Yes, sir.
A bonus item on the list.
Yes, sir.
No more I-539 biometrics fee. Huzzah. So a couple years ago, they said everybody who's doing I-539s, H4s, H4 extensions, E2 extensions, L2 extensions, you're going to be paying an $85 biometric fee. We're going to drag you down to our biometrics office, and you're going to fingerprint you, etc.
Effective October 1st.
Yes, this is true. Then they suspended it for a while, and as of today, USCIS announced we're finally done with it as of October 1st. If you're filing after October 1st, no biometrics fee.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So it took us a little bit longer than our target 15-minute discussion.
Yeah, that's a good talk.
But it's an important topic to kind of break down the government shutdown. And then, by the way, one last point. I mean, as government shutdown appears more likely every minute, especially with candidate Donald Trump just announced that he's
shut
in favor.
It down.
Yeah, he said shut it down. So that emboldens the people who are not wanting to vote for it.
They're closely aligned with him, and he's just giving them a nice umbrella to hide underneath.
Right, hooray, hooray! You're doing a good job.
Yeah.
So that means the prospect of shutting down now has gone up another 10 or 15%. This is as of about an hour or two ago.
Yeah.
They could still reach a deal where they can say temporary extension for another 2 weeks to resolve the differences. That could be signed the night before, like could be signed even on Saturday, potentially. So we hope that happens, and we don't have to go through the government shutdown scenario, but you never know.
We are sitting around here today preparing for that, inevitability. We were preparing last week, frankly.
We've been working closely with our clients. We filed all their LCAs in advance that can be filed. So we're sitting pretty, at least in our office for right now, see what happens. All right, let's take questions.
Yes, so when it comes to the questions, what do you say with regards to questions, Sam?
No attorney-client relationship is established. Do not rely on our representation to make life-changing decisions. As they say in the consulate package, do not sell your house before you get your visa. Yeah. Do not sell your house because you said something here in the session. Just listen, get a good immigration attorney of your choice to advise you on your case, to help you out. And then those who are asking us, we're continuing to do as of now. We're doing something special here because a lot of people are asking. We're doing an EB1 evaluation at no cost. Just go into our contact and request to do that, and we will do it for you.
Yeah, I mean, what are we talking about? Well, what are we talking about next week? Assuming there's no other big.
We're going to talk about EB1. There's some minor changes in clarifications in the policy. Yeah. But if you're not qualified for EB1, save us the time. We appreciate your understanding.
Let's get to these questions, though.
All right, so let's jump in.
Yeah.
All right, so we got, if you can make that bigger,
we'll make that
Brian?
bigger because, you're going to see me squinting and nobody needs to see that.
Hooray, Brian.
Hi, Sam and Brian. Previous AP expired and applied for AP renewal. I-797 approval is still next year. Never used EAD AP. Can I apply emergency AP or get visa stamp to return? Will it impact pending AOS? So...
Well, apply for emergency advanced parole right now. If you need to do it, you need to do it this week.
Yeah.
If you have an emergency, I mean, you need to just tomorrow.
Yeah. What depends, but yeah, can you apply for an emergency if you have a legitimate emergency? And generally speaking, in the eyes of USCIS, a good emergency is a sort of life and death emergency. Like I have a relative abroad who's dying. I cannot travel back. I will lose my green card process if you don't give me this advanced parole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're going to, of course, require evidence of that as well.
A letter from a doctor or something.
Yeah, it's typically what that
It has to be a
like.
close relative. All right, sounds good. All right, from Pune. Hi, Sam, Brian. I have 2 approved I-140s under EB2, one with current and one with previous employer. Can I port one to EB3 and then file 485 when either EB2 or EB3 become current? Well, so you have 2 I-140s and you want to see if you can do a transfer underlying basis for one of them to an EB3. Now, you can do that, absolutely. Brian, you're thinking too hard, but I will give you...
I'm always...
Yeah, you're thinking hard about it, which you should. You could do a transfer on the line basis. Remember, anyone that you do, there has to be a bona fide offer of employment. That's the most important thing. The second thing is, obviously, depending on the priority date, the filing of the adjustment status is up in the air. When it becomes current, correct.
I, Sam, have achieved the exact right amount of thinking about this issue. See, you're presuming there's a pending adjustment, somebody has a pending adjustment status. I see nothing here to indicate that. I see a world where somebody has 2 I-140s with different employers, and which one can I turn one of these into an EB3 one?
I see.
Right?
So what you're saying is you got to refile an I-140.
Yeah. So to be clear, for Raghavar and Pune, it is possible to have multiple I-140s based upon the same labor certification. So you can still have 2 I-140s in the EB2 category with both those employers. And essentially what you do is you'd add another one, presuming your labor certification is drafted properly. And of course it must be EB3s. EB2s will always qualify for EB3. Essentially, you can file another I-140 with one of those employers in the EB3 category. You don't leave behind the EB2 opportunity with that employer. Yeah. And whenever your date comes up in either category, you file for adjustment of status.
Yes. So I think your reading is right on because it says when it becomes current. You file 485. So the answer is yes. You can convert one to an EB3 by filing a new I-140. Yeah. Now, can you file a new I-140 with a prior employer?
Yes.
As long as there's a bona fide offer.
Yeah, they have to be willing to offer you permanent employment. So you could essentially, make some immigration attorney very happy out there, Raghuvaran, is do 2 in an EB3 I-140 with each employer. You're not pinned into a world where one employer has to be EB3 and one employer has to be EB2.
So you can have 2 EB2s and 2 EB3s in his situation, as long as he has 4 bona fide offers of employment. Yeah. Really 2 bona fide offers.
Oh yeah, 2 bona fide offers, but different. Yeah. It's silly they require a second I-140 for that, but it is what it is. Yeah.
Yes. All right, Rayed Al Sharif. Hey, when do you expect EB3 other workers to reach June 2022? Will there be any big movement? So,
sort of a refresher on the subject of the visa bulletin dates for filing. So EB3 other workers, I'm going to presume that you are talking about the rest of the world, Rayed, because that's the only one remotely close to there. Honestly, it looks to be quite a while. The dates for filing for October 2023 for the rest of the world, EB3 other workers, are in December of 2020. And that is quite a bit off. It's, close to a year and a half off of where you're at.
And that will continue to struggle a little bit. Just remember that the other workers, EB3 gets only 10,000 green cards a year, plus a little bit more because of the 20,000 overflow. So there's a very limited number.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, the very limited number of green cards available every year for EB3, and therefore it moves slower.
In terms of movement, I won't predict big movement. I would say look for any movement at the beginning of the next quarter of the fiscal year, which would be on the January visa bulletin. That's when you can expect to see. That's when they release new visas. That's when they expect to see movement. It's always possible for them to move the visa bulletin between them if perhaps if the demand is lower than they anticipate it. But I don't give large chances of large movements across a single quarter.
Of which no more than 10,000 may be provided to other workers.
Yeah,
that's
a
limited.
low number. Yeah. So.
All right. So Mayor, 80% profile ready for EB1. Shall we file EB2 national interest waiver? India born and currently on J1 visa, doing research in Ivy League. Is travel suggested with I-140 approved and on J1? I would not begin to answer the first question without a complete analysis of the EB1 and the national interest waiver. I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no way I can answer that question in good faith. And I think, I don't see, I don't know what country of nationality you are, whether filing national interest.
India born.
So national interest waiver, EB2.
Well,
if he has another EB2.
EB2 can, it's eventually good for, that priority date's good. You get the priority date.
Right. I mean, it locks a priority date.
Yeah, I would never have any any sort of approved I-140 employment-based category, EB1. You pass that EB2 priority date up to EB1 in the future if you can get there.
So he's doing research in an Ivy League. He can do a self-petition EB2 national interest waiver, and locks his priority date.
Yeah.
And then once he reaches 100% on EB1, he file another EB1.
Yeah.
And that moves the priority date to EB1.
Yeah, I see that question there about J1 visas. Do you know off the top of your head whether they have an immigrant intent issue?
There is an immigrant intent issue with J1.
Yeah, and so this sort of thing, devil's in the details there, Mayor, but definitely talk to somebody about travel with a approved I-140 and a J1. The old immigration lawyers joke, you can always travel outside the United States, is whether you can come back is the question. They don't check your papers when you're leaving.
So that conflicts a little bit with filing a national interest waiver.
That's
As
true.
a matter of fact, not only that, but also, I mean, if you're born in India, EB1 is backlogged
until 2019 for the
July 2019. Yeah. So the question becomes.
That's the dates for filing, even for the.
I'm looking at it right here, and that becomes a question of whether or not it's a good idea, and you have to be ready to hunker down for a few years.
Yeah, let's talk about the issue. So lots of types of H1 and L visas, they allow you to seek to immigrate to the United States, and a lot of people in our audience are on H1L visas. That's why you're allowed to file I-140s out the wazoo. Have 4 of them, have 5 of them. We're all for it. There are lots of visas out there where if you have an immigrant petition, I-130 or an I-140, the government will say, whoa, that's incompatible with your status, and they may not be able to approve you for immigration benefits based upon that.
Yeah. So USCIS will not deny a J visa, will not revoke a J visa as a matter of policy, but they will not renew your J visa, and coming across the border, there is clearly a risk of not being admitted.
Yeah, you mentioned you had a case of that with it was an E2 visa at the border.
Yeah, we had to withdraw an I-140 and come back later.
Yeah.
I mean, you can withdraw an I-140, get the J visa in if you have and then refile it, but that's crazy stuff.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Think of it, a national interest waiver, something you did yourself. Okay, I withdrew my national interest waiver on behalf of myself, and I think a customs border could look at you with a straight face, and you say, oh, so you withdrew your national interest waiver and let you back on a J visa, and you're not going to go file that again?
No, it's okay. It's not filed. It's withdrawn. But the question is, you refile it is insanity.
Yeah.
Number one, it may not be approved.
Yeah.
These are 25% subjective, anyways.
Yeah. So for Mayor, long view, I am happy that this person has passed to a green card in the United States, but there's a lot to talk about in terms of those.
This is one of the things that you want to definitely work closely with an attorney to make sure they time your applications and the type of application that fits your personal situation.
Yeah.
All right. And we got a question from Emily Marshall. Emily Marshall, we saw her last week on our show, and welcome back. The recent released data by USCIS may be an indication that the Department of State does not trust their data. Because how is it possible that Mexico with 888, rest of the world,
1,260,
and Philippines with 8,400 approved I-140.
I imagine it's a part 2 of this. And it sounds like USCIS may have recently released new I-140 backlogs, had the same final action date. How is that possible? Yeah, that's something that...
Well, let's go back to the number again.
Yeah, so Mexico with, I'm pretty sure that she's referring to the I-140s, approved I-140s, people waiting for visas to come to the United States. Right. And basically, rest of the, Mexico 888, rest of the world 12,602, and Philippines at 8,400. That's their I-140 approved backlog. How can they all have the same
final action
date?
Right.
Yeah.
So the question becomes obviously, what is the 7% of the 160,000?
Yeah.
So that's, what's that number?
Oh, you're beyond my math skills, Sam.
Yeah.
160, 0, and 2, 3 times 0.07 will do it, I believe.
Yeah. So that's 11,200. That's that might answer your question, because if you're not crossing that number, they're not messing with it.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So that means potentially you may see retrogression in the future, because 11,200.
It's pretty close to the. Well, what about the Philippines?
Times 28%. I'm sorry. That's why we shouldn't be doing math.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I can't change things. Yeah, each category is 28%, 28.5%. So that's 3,000. She's right.
Per country.
Yeah.
And
So
how Philippines? I mean, Mexico makes sense that they're not terribly backlogged, but Philippines at 8,400. How does it work?
Yeah.
So this is the point where I say, I don't know. I'm kind of given up on predicting the visa bulletin. I tend to look at the visa bulletin anymore and read what the visa bulletin says, and
that's not counting spouses.
Yeah, and this is that's very true.
So you cut that number.
Those
in
numbers
half.
generally for only 2 I-140s
So Emily is right on the money. We see that they don't know what they're doing, and
well, when it comes to reading the visa bulletin, for me anymore, the most important things are the notes from the Department of State at the end, where they say, "Hey, here's what we're thinking on the visa bulletin." And in the case of this one, the language I'm hanging on is the one that says, "Hey, data advances reflect intention to keep visa issuance within quarterly limits in accordance with INA, yada yada yada, with potential data advancements throughout the fiscal year." So potential for data advancements throughout the fiscal year.
That's contrary to what the number reads from Emily. All right, so Rahul Roy, I'm due for adjustment of status EAD extension. Should I wait until October 1st for the 5-year policy to kick in? Well, it's not kicking in on October 1st. Nobody said that, and thanks for asking the question.
Yeah.
This policy now is just simply a blurb from the DHS, Department of Homeland Security website. We haven't heard anything from USCIS. We haven't heard any dates. There were no details given as to when they're going to implement it and how they're going to implement it. So renew your EAD. That's my advice.
I would. Yeah, I want somebody to have that 5-year EADs. It depends.
It's nice to have.
Depends on.
We'll have it next time.
Well, I say depends on how old your EAD.
Don't play that game. I mean, it's taking them forever.
I guess you're right. Yeah. So
if your EAD is pending and you're good and they're improving processing time, you can withdraw and refile. Consider that instead of waiting, because withdraw and refile is just equal waiting without having to risk the wait.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. So.
All right, for you, Brian.
Hi, Sam and Brian. First off, I'd like to thank you for doing this live event every Monday. I have a quick question. Is there a grace period for someone who has lost their job on green card EAD? Ooh. So...
Interesting question.
Yes, which for the first time pretty much ever, we got some, last week we were talking about it here live, that we got some commentary from USCIS on the idea of not having a job with a pending green card. So
there's no regulations that addresses grace unemployment during a green card EAD. That's number one.
Yeah.
However,
recently, very illustrative. Recently, USCIS issued some FAQs, which are just FAQs. They're not regulations, but they explicitly confirm what we already know, that you're not required to ever have been employed by your green card sponsor while your green card is pending. It is very possible to do an employment-based green card, never having set foot in the United States before. It's pretty rare, but I remember I did one maybe 6 or 7 years ago for a Ukrainian company. One of our clients had a guy who was providing consulting services to them in Ukraine. They wanted him here. They did a EB3 I-140 for him, and it took a couple years, but he entered the United States having never been here before, day one, employment-based green card. But losing your job. The government also says in these FAQs that if you have a separation from your employer, your green card sponsor employer, or long periods of unemployment, that might,
or working in a job in unrelated classification.
Yeah, that may raise concerns for them. So, and honestly, we've seen back in part of the slew of October 2020 green cards that were filed, a common, what we think, interview trigger was, you weren't with the employer that sponsored your green card at the time you filed the I-45. That's a lot of people seem to have that issue in terms of getting interviews, so they can talk to people about it.
So, what's your advice to our friend here if he has a gap in employment?
Don't worry, but start worrying. Basically, don't worry about the gap in employment, but conservative advice is always going to be to get yourself a new
short
job.
Gap, few weeks.
Yeah.
Yes. Beyond that, I think it's worrisome.
Yeah.
I think start thinking about self-employment.
Yeah.
Self-employment. You can probably start working on self-employment right now, and then you can transfer out of self-employment to another job.
Yeah.
So that's perfectly okay.
That's a good point. Yeah, there's no limits on what you can do on that green card EAD. So yeah.
Set up a company and start working, taking odd jobs here and there in the job classification you're in. And then if you get a job somewhere else, you can transfer from self-employment into employment. So if there's somebody asking you during that period, you can say, well, yeah, I was doing self-employment. Here's the work I did. Here's the documentation. What I've done during that time is all related to my work. You're good.
Yeah. From Ram KC.
All right. Good evening, Sam and Brian. When's the ideal time to file a writ of mandamus? What's the ideal cost, case current since submission to till date, and is at NBC? Thank you. All right. So he wants us to talk a little bit about a writ of mandamus.
Yeah, I'm going to flesh this out a little bit more. It sounds like Ram has a long pending I-45 case that is apparently at the National Benefit Center and is ready to be approved. Yeah. And you commented on this maybe a week or two ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a writ of mandamus is an application in the federal court asking the judge to request or demand that the government does its job to make a decision on the case. The judge does not involve in deciding the case. He decides that the government must open the file and process the file.
Do their job. Mandamus is a court action to make the government do their job.
Yeah, exactly. And so all what you have to show is that there is unreasonable government delays. There is a right, you have a right to, for the requested relief, the benefit that you're asking for, and the government did not do the job they're asking for. And oftentimes, writ of mandamus, they do yield good results if you're careful how you file them and you don't file them hastily. I don't like to file writ of mandamus hastily because then it costs more money, you may not get what you want. We've been successful with writ of mandamus in cases where we feel that a judge will be looking at the case and they will say, "Are you kidding me? This is what the government is doing."
That is the ideal. Put it in front of a judge, and are they gonna be pissed
upset
off on your behalf? Yeah.
Yeah, upset.
Yeah.
So it has to be compelling.
Yeah.
The facts has to be compelling, and if the facts are compelling, you have a good writ of mandamus. So what the ideal time is, we need to know the facts and how long it's taken, and that building the story around the writ of mandamus is really where the mandamus wins and loses. Are you telling a story that's really compelling?
Yeah, when I think about writs of mandamus, I think about, well, how long is it taking everybody else's case? Because I think the government attorney is going to have a compelling argument. Well, it's taking 2 years for everybody, and not just this guy. You want to move this guy to the top when everybody else is in the same time frame. Call us when you have a guy who has a 4-year case pending, which is Well, both those times are ridiculous for the record, but you know.
Well, I mean, we're not getting into the law, but the counter argument is if the government's screwing 2,000 or 20,000 other people, I don't want to be screwed along the process. Of course, you're not going to say that in those words, but that's basically
you find
the
a nice
bottom line.
legal way to say it. Yes.
Exactly. So I mean, there are ways. So now, you need your mandamus to be reviewed carefully by an attorney to give you an answer, whether we feel that this mandamus is something that's compelling enough to file, and you're not wasting your time and money. Yeah. But delay lawsuits right now are encouraged, especially in light of the fact that the government approved cases ahead of other cases in the past, and they have people jump from AB2 to AB3 and back to AB2 and all this mess. I mean,
all
just telling the story.
The wastage of green card. I mean, if you filed in 2020 and you're still pending in 2023 and you've been current the whole time, that's
very compelling.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah. There you go. Gonna keep it moving on here from Sanfax, a frequent visitor to our live stream here. Yep. I have applied for EAD AP extension earlier this month, and surprisingly today got receipt notices and EAD approval notice together. Wow. How do I know if it's combo card or standalone? I got approved for 2 years. I have a simple answer for you there, Sanfax. Wait until the card is in your hand, and then you'll know.
But that's fantastic.
On the bottom of a combo card, it'll say, I believe it says, serves as I-5112 advanced parole. Yeah. I skipped one there.
Emily Marshall, does the government shutdown impact consular visa issuance at DOS?
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. And that's one of the things we discussed earlier, Emily. The government shutdown will affect issuance of visas because the focus they're going to be shorthanded. They're not going to have, obviously, all the money they need. So the focus will shift to serving U.S. citizen need overseas as a priority number one, and then as a priority number two, issuing visas. So there will be delays, as we've seen in prior incidences.
Yeah. Which we don't need any more delays in visa issuance abroad for family and employment things. It's rough. From Janwar Harish, my I-131 got approved 4 weeks back. I have not received the I-512 AP document yet. Is it normal? I have raised the service request 2 weeks back, no response. What should I do? Interesting.
4 weeks is about the time when I begin to worry.
Yeah. My honest thing is, I think if somebody dropped that in my email box for when we filed, I'd say give it about a week and then we'll talk. Yeah. I mean, you can inquire with USCIS service inquiries. It doesn't surprise me that a service inquiry raised 2 weeks ago has not been responded to yet.
Yeah, I would be. I enter the concern zone after 4 weeks, no question.
Yeah. I think things are they're just generally slow right now. But I think it's still possible you may get it. And no worries. Sure. From Kieran Mapuri, EB1PD 2016 September 45 filed in July 2023. Can I expect the green card? When can I expect the green card? Well, you can't expect the green card. When is the $1,000 question? If you go to the USCIS website, you say people know this, Sam, but I'm not sure everybody does. If you go to the USCIS website, scroll down the page you scroll about a page or two down. On the right-hand side, there's going to be, check processing times. If you tell the portal where your I-485 case is, sometimes these I-485 cases get processed out of the one of the service centers. Sometimes they get processed out of your local field office. Check them both. You'll get an idea as to what the processing times might be.
And
I apologize in advance. They're going to be long.
12 to 18 months is what you're looking at from filing date.
Yeah.
Is what we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
All right, Emery Marshall, does the I-539 biometric fees exemption include change of status to F1?
Well, we've gotten an email today, and as I recall reading that email, it says the biometrics fee is going to be totally gone. Let's see what it says when they actually update the USCIS website, I-539,
5-year EAD for H4 as well. Is that a statement or a question?
I think that's a question. I think that's an impossibility for the following reason. H4 EADs are tied to H4 status. The longest amount of time you can get an H4 I-94 is 3 years. Thereby, 3-year H4
EAD, the
EADs
maximum you should expect.
yeah, exactly.
But I don't think they've mentioned extension of time on EADs for H4
Yeah, I
in that
don't
release.
think they mentioned it. Yeah, yeah.
But that's a good question.
Yeah, a very good question. Yeah. Oh, there. And speaking of questions, one more.
All right, so one more question. With current scenarios, when do you expect EB2 India, April 2015, to become current?
So,
Brian?
to the best of my recollection, the furthest we've seen priority dates make it for India EB2 or EB3 is January 1st, 2015, back in October 2020. And so in order to get back there, as everybody knows, there's a great big backlog already of tons of cases in the hands of USCIS. And as part of their FAQs they issued on, I think it was September 18th or something like that, just a week or so ago, they said they have enough cases in their hands already to cover that backlog for several fiscal years. And then you're talking about moving. They never actually made. I think those dates are finally made it to January 2015. I think the final action dates made it to December 2014, maybe. And I think it's going to be a while, Parole. I don't really predict the visa bulletin, but what I'd say at the very least, you have to work through 4 months worth of people who are before you in line, even when they get to January 2015. There's going to be big demand there, obviously, because India is just a country that has big demand.
Yes. Anitha has a question for us, Brian.
Okay.
Indian-born, priority date is December 2023, EB1C. Pending adjustment. It's been more than 6 months since the I-140 approval, but hasn't received biometrics. When can I expect the EAD?
Well, I will rearrange your brain a little bit there, Anitha, and say the I-140, the EAD is not tied to the I-140, it's tied to the adjustment of status. The EAD timeframe doesn't surprise me. I would say the same advice: hit up the USCIS website and put in your on the right-hand side of the page, scroll down the way, tiny text that says check your processing times. I think that's within normal range, honestly, for an EAD right now. We've heard anecdotally some EADs coming in faster, but the processing times are, I believe, something along the lines of like 8 or 9 months for an adjustment-based EAD, which is a bummer. I'll cross my fingers for you, and maybe you'll get lucky and get one of the 5-year ones when it finally does come in.
Which will be fantastic.
Yes.
But also, she should be getting a green card. Her priority date is 2016.
Oh, it's a 2016 EB. No, 12/20/23.
Oh, priority 2023.
Wait, 12. Wait, that's impossible. 12/20. That's the future. Well,
pending adjustment status. So her priority is current.
Okay.
So we don't know.
Here's what I usually tell people about EADs and filing adjustment of status. There's a reasonable chance that your adjustment of status, if we have a current priority date, that your adjustment of status will be approved before that EAD gets in your hand.
Sriva, 1 of 2. Currently on green card EAD, is it okay to join a new employer on EAD where a job that is not exactly the same, but I have a permanent job offer, similar category from a different employer? A little tricky here.
Yeah.
It does not pass the comfort level for me if you have if you're not doing same or similar. Based on the memo they've released recently, they're going to be looking at that.
Well, the devil is in the details. I mean, they have. I mean, what Sriva means for same occupation, Java developer to C developer.
Similar, but not the same.
I mean, that's kind of
so
on
you're
the nose.
reading into it. The job is similar, but not the same.
That's a real complex conversation.
But that's a very legitimate point. And if the job is similar, I mean, what is similar? Okay. The best way to talk about what is similar is to talk about what is the government view as not similar. A job that's not similar is if you're doing, if you have, let's say, analytics degree, so you can do finance and you can do programming, but you got your green card based on programming, and all of a sudden you're doing finance. These are not similar. So that's not similar. So, but if you're doing things within the IT, technology, and you're doing
within the same, like I think it's been a while since I've read the policy, but if you're in the same big number category of job codes, they might
But in some other situation, you also can cross that and still be similar. So the USCIS has a memorandum on what is same or similar. It's really very informative and helpful. You might want to just say same or similar job classification. USCIS memo,
Yeah.
and you will get it.
You might find it in their policy manual as well. USCIS policy manual, same or similar occupation.
Yes, and read about whether or not your job is similar, because if your job is similar, you don't have a problem. If your job is not similar, then I would be concerned. 2 of 2.
Yeah.
If yes, well, we gave you maybe, but let's keep going. What documents required to support a permanent job offer? Will the offer letter suffice, or the I-45J is required? Well, 100% the I-45J is required, and the job letter now has become an old thing.
Yeah.
But they look beyond that. A job offer is the employer's intent to give you a job. So once you become current, this is a time when you need to make some decisions and join the employer, if there is or to do an AC-21 and go to a different employer, but you need to be very well documented. So when USCIS is ready to issue that green card, you have your duck in a row.
As I mentioned earlier, they can find it interesting when you are not employed by the company that is sponsoring your green card.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that.
But with the passage of time, it's accepted that you may move. But if you've never worked for the employer,
they might find it interesting.
They might be
It could be a perfectly
curious.
legitimate scenario as well. Yeah, I've talked to Company A, and Company A says as soon as the green card, we want you permanently. As soon as the green card's available, perfectly fine. But it's just devil's in the details.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a clarification. I meant priority date 12/2022, which is very not 12/2023. So I think that person got because as I recall, I remember how I spent the end of my 12/2022 getting EB1C green cards out the door at the last minute because the priority dates retrogressed in January 2023. Is my vague recollection. Let's not quote me on that.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that. All right, sounds good. So let's take the next one, Brian. Here.
Yes. Bing. Aditya Podar.
Yep.
USCIS scheduled my interview for the second week of October 2023 for the EB1C category. My priority date is January 2021. Is there any chances of adjudication during the interview? Well, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a no.
October 2023.
Priority date is January 2021, though. So the answer is no. The October visa bulletin says India EB1. I'm presuming you are born in India.
2017.
Yeah, the final action dates are in 2017. So they will not. As a practical matter, it used to be, Sam, where you could usually pretty often get the officer to indicate during a green card interview what they plan to do with the case. A lot of them would tell you that they're willing to approve. All they do anymore is hand you one of those notices that says, essentially, you're here, we have your case, we'll let you know. So that's what you can expect at the end of your interview there.
Unless there's a cross-chargeability or a reason for the interview, because I'm now curious why there is an interview altogether.
Well, I've been to plenty of interviews in the last year for people whose priority dates are not current.
Right.
Yeah.
But there could be also.
Yeah. You're entirely right. If you have a current priority date, if you have a current priority date. We won't see him do it in the room, but I've been in the parking lot with somebody talking about, that went, and they get a blip on their phone saying case approved.
Yep, perfect. Yeah. All right, so
see what we got.
Winaris, if I pronounce correctly. If you are out of combo card approval once for EAD and AP,
I don't see a follow-up to that question.
Yeah,
so
that fell apart. All right, let's take the next one.
Yes.
All right, so Shreyas Kulkarni. Hi, Sam and Brian. I recently got my EB1A I-140 approved with priority date of January 2013. I had filed adjustment status under EB3 in October of 2020, downgraded from EB2, transferring on a basis from EB2 to EB1. Question.
And see if there's another one from Shreyas here. There we are.
How long should I wait before I can file written mandamus since my priority date was current in February 2021 through September 22 under EB2? So none of these dates are current. Let's go back to that priority date, Brian, again.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
None of those are current now. So you cannot do a transfer on underlying basis.
No, January 2013, priority date January 2013. He's, again, a transfer on underlying basis from EB2 to EB1.
So he's ready to go.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So right now, 2017, if you are born in India, which is wonderful, so I would do a transfer underlying basis, that's the first thing you have to do.
Yeah, you have to make sure that's done right. Yeah.
right, and you get an acknowledgement from them. You don't need, you still need a supplement, Jay, for
Yeah,
that?
you need a. That's an interesting. Yeah, I guess you can. It'll be a self. Yeah. I guess you need a supplement J from yourself.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
So once you file it and get the acknowledgement, you start bothering them, sending them a few letters, and then I would say I would give it. The adjustment has been pending for a long time. I'd give it maybe 60 days, then I'll file the.
I was mentally on a. I have such little faith in them. I was on a more like
aggressive.
No, less aggressive.
More time.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine going. Well, now granted, there shouldn't be any new work to do, The I-140 is approved. The adjustment is presumably waiting for approval.
You file a mandamus for an EB1, that gets the attention. Extraordinary ability.
Those are always.
That's all very attractive for a judge to read.
Hey, judge,
I like it.
This guy or gal is eligible for the top visa we give away, the one for the people who are the #1 in their field.
Top of their field.
Yeah, and the government's been sitting on it forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please tell the government to, do their job.
Yeah.
And that is possible. So we'll take one more, Brian, since we crossed the 7 o'clock.
I think we're about hit pretty much everybody here. Anyway, let's see what we got.
So 1308, Nanny. Take it, Brian.
Hi, thanks for what you're doing. You're welcome. My priority date is March 12th, 2012. Perm with current employer in EB3 is currently pending since 7 months. My employer is applying for my H1 extension now. Since my date is current, will my H1B be approved for 3 years or 1 year?
Well, the date is current. You don't get that unless there's exceptional circumstances.
If your date's current, you're generally not eligible for 3 years extensions. You would get 1 year extensions, but it's about at the time of filing. So if you were not, I don't know the details of the H1B extension. If you are not eligible if your priority date was not current at the time of filing the H1B, you might still get a.
You'll probably get at the time of filing, right? But it says it's current now.
Yeah. So I don't know when
it's October 2023.
Applying for my extension now. I'm sorry, H1B extension being applied for now. Assuming your priority date
so
is
current. If you file it before October 1st,
Yeah, you're right.
Yes, for 3 years, you should get 3 years.
Say this person's priority date will be current in October?
Well, I'm looking at, I think it's 2012 sometime.
It's right here.
March 12, 2012. So it's May 2012 right now.
Okay, and what I cleared up
this for filing.
The September one. I don't have it with me, so
yeah. I'm assuming this moved.
Yeah, I believe it did from 2009.
So if in September, I don't have the September visa, but if in September you're not current, you get 3 years if you file before the end of this month.
Yeah. Eligibility at the time of filing is generally what
you get it out to this month to get the 3 years.
I sincerely hope you don't have to wait 3 years to get a green card, but in this world, I think it might be the case.
Yep.
All right.
With that, we thank you guys for listening to us. Hopefully, we cannot talk about the government shutdown comes Monday at 6 o'clock and talk about EB1 updates. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of the week.